In recent years, artificial intelligence has proven capable of solving complex problems, generating creative works, and even mimicking human reasoning. But what happens when we ask AI to wrestle with one of humanity's most profound questions? For this experiment, we put an atheist in front of a believer in God. Over 3 rounds, they will debate on the following question: does God exist? Place your bets, sharpen your own reasoning, and get ready. The showdown begins now. The first round opens with a deceptively simple but foundational question. Must there be evidence in order for belief in God to be rational? The debaters take their places. The believer steps forward first, confident and precise. The atheist waits calmly, prepared to push back.
Not everything that matters can be proven in a lab. Faith is not blind trust, but a rational way of living with the realities that can't be measured. Personal experience, conscience, history, these form a tapestry of evidence that points to God. And throughout human history, people have risked, sacrificed, and even died for this belief. Surely that speaks to something beyond mere illusion.
Rational belief requires evidence. In every aspect of life, whether in science, law, or everyday decision-making, we demand verifiable proof before we commit ourselves. Why should God be treated as an exception? If believers cannot point to clear, objective evidence for God's existence, then faith amounts to little more than blind trust.
Not so fast. Evidence comes in many forms, and not all of them are empirical. Love, morality, and even mathematics are examples of truths we cannot put under a microscope, yet they remain rational foundations for our lives. Belief in God belongs to this category. It is not blind, it is another way of knowing.
Without evidence, faith is nothing more than unchecked subjectivity and wishful thinking. We need external validation, standards that everyone can examine. Otherwise, faith is arbitrary. A religious experience may feel powerful to you, but to an outsider, it is just a story. How do we move beyond subjective stories without evidence?
You're assuming rationality only exists where empirical verification is possible. But look deeper. Our entire use of reason rests on unprovable assumptions. We trust our senses. We assume the universe is consistent. We rely on logic itself. None of these can be proven with absolute certainty. Yet without them, rational thought collapses. Faith in God works the same way. It is a trust that provides coherence and meaning to life.
Cultures around the world produce conflicting religious claims. They cannot all be true. How do we separate truth from falsehood, if not by evidence? Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, all make exclusive claims about God. Without proof, how do we know which one is right, if any?
The diversity of religions doesn't invalidate belief. It shows that humanity, across time and culture, is reaching for the transcendent. That impulse itself is evidence of something real. Just as different languages all point to the same reality of communication, different religions may be variations pointing toward the same divine reality.
Science and reason have given us medicine, technology, and knowledge that demonstrably improve our lives. They rely on testing, measuring, and verifying. By exempting God from those standards, you create an open door for superstition, manipulation, and contradiction.
But even science depends on interpretation. Data doesn't speak for itself. Reason integrates meaning. Faith does the same, drawing on moral insight, existential longing, and the transformation of lives. It is not irrational. It is reason working at the edges of what can be proven. Science can tell us how to split the atom, but it can't tell us whether we should. Faith and morality step in where facts end.
We demand evidence before trusting a doctor with our health, a pilot with our safety, or a scientist with a theory. If we need proof for those crucial decisions, why lower our standards for God, the biggest claim of all?
Because life itself cannot be reduced to data points. Consider love. You cannot prove it through equations. Yet it is one of the most rational motivations for human action. Or morality? You cannot empirically demonstrate why justice is better than cruelty, but reason tells us it is so. Faith, too, is a rational response, practical even, because it gives people the courage to live with uncertainty. Just as we trust in the loyalty of a friend or in the promise of tomorrow, so too can we reasonably trust in God.
The arguments land with weight on both sides, but which arguments are better? To ensure fairness, 4 additional AI systems were enlisted as judges. Each of these models, trained on vast yet distinct data sets, brought its own perspective to the scoring process. After every round, each judge assigned a score from 0 to 100, reflecting the clarity, logic, and persuasiveness of the arguments presented. These numbers were averaged to determine which side carried the round. The judges deliberate. Their scores reveal a narrow margin, but a margin nonetheless. Round 1 goes to the Atheist. Let's see what round 2 brings us. The stage is set for round 2, and the tension in the virtual arena is palpable. The question is stark. Does belief in God offer a better foundation for meaning, morality, and human flourishing than atheism does? The atheist takes a deep breath, ready to confront what many consider the most challenging aspect of theology. The believer, calm and poised, prepares to defend the divine perspective.
Without God, morality risks becoming opinion, meaning dissolves into preference, and hope shrinks to a fleeting moment before death. But with God, morality is grounded in something higher than ourselves, meaning stretches beyond our lifetime, and hope rests on a promise that suffering and evil will not have the last word. Faith offers coherence, purpose, and a horizon wide enough for love, justice, and human flourishing to endure.
On the contrary, morality does not require God. Empathy, cooperation, and rational thought explain why humans care about right and wrong. Secular societies thrive by building justice systems, promoting human rights, and pursuing well-being without invoking the divine. Claiming morality requires God ignores centuries of progress achieved by human reasoning and compassion.
But why should compassion or justice matter at all in a purely material universe? If life is only atoms and chance, morality is merely a survival strategy, not a binding standard. God provides the grounding that makes love more than chemicals, justice more than social convention. Without a transcendent source, calling something evil or good is merely subjective preference.
Yet humans consistently recognize good and evil without appealing to God. We reject slavery, champion equality, and defend human rights. These achievements come from dialogue, reason, and reflection. If religion were necessary for morality, history would not be so full of holy wars, persecutions, and atrocities committed in God's name.
You're correct that religion can be misused, but that only proves humans can distort truth, not that God is absent. The very outrage you feel at injustice hints at a higher moral order, something beyond biology or social convention. Why else would we universally call oppression wrong in a fundamental sense, unless we sense a transcendent moral lawgiver?
Morality can be objective without God. Principles like fairness, reciprocity, and harm reduction provide standards independent of divine command. Atheism does not reduce life to meaninglessness. It invites us to create purpose through our actions, relationships, and contributions. Love, justice, and fulfillment are real and meaningful even without eternal promises.
But creating meaning alone is fragile. It collapses in the face of death. What good is love if it ends forever at the grave? What good is justice if cruelty ultimately prevails? Only God secures the ultimate triumph of good over evil. Only God transforms love into something eternal. Faith is not a crutch. It is the strongest foundation for human flourishing, giving hope that endures beyond life's limits.
The AI judges weigh in. The atheist insists that human reason and compassion are enough, that meaning and morality stand firm without God. The believer counters that without God, morality and meaning dissolve into subjectivity, and that faith alone secures hope beyond death. We wait for the scores to show, and this round goes to the believer AI. We have still one round to go. Who will win this debate? The audience, virtual and human alike, leans in closer. The stakes are higher than ever. The air in the virtual arena grows heavier. 2 rounds down, and everything comes to rest on this one question. Does the existence of suffering and evil disprove God? The debaters take their final positions. The atheist steels themselves with reason and evidence. The believer stands ready with conviction and hope.
Look around you. Natural disasters, diseases, pointless suffering. How can these exist under the watch of an all-powerful, all-good God? If God is both able and willing to prevent evil, yet evil persists, the conclusion seems unavoidable. Such a God either does not exist or does not care. This is not a philosophical abstraction. Children die screaming in hospitals every day. What possible lesson justifies that?
Suffering does not negate God. It deepens the human story. Pain and hardship can teach, refine, and guide us. Through struggle, we develop empathy, resilience, and moral insight. A world without challenge would be a world without growth. If God eliminated all suffering, He would also eliminate courage, sacrifice, and compassion, virtues that exist only in response to struggle.
Even if suffering teaches lessons, countless instances of pointless or gratuitous suffering remain. Babies born with fatal illnesses, earthquakes that kill thousands. These do not fit into a framework of moral or spiritual education. They exist beyond justification. If your God is a teacher, He seems to be one who tortures His students.
You're assuming morality and purpose exist independently of God. Without God, concepts of good and evil are merely subjective. What you call pointless suffering only appears meaningless if you ignore the bigger picture, a perspective that transcends our limited understanding. If evil outrages you, that very outrage is evidence of an objective moral standard, and such a standard points to God.
Then consider human choice. You argue that free will is necessary for love and moral growth. But natural disasters, famine, and disease, these are not choices. They are not the result of free will. They are evidence of a world indifferent to human suffering. A tsunami does not teach compassion, it drowns children.
Free will explains moral evil, yes, but natural evil plays a role too. It challenges us, tests our compassion, and invites action. Moreover, some truths remain hidden, perhaps even necessary for free will and authentic love to exist. God's ways are mysterious, yet they can coexist with what appears to us as suffering. If God removed every danger, we would live in a world of automatons, safe, but devoid of meaningful responsibility.
So you ask us to accept mystery over reason? To embrace faith in the face of undeniable cruelty? Isn't mystery just a word to cover for the fact that your arguments fail to explain the horror we actually see?
Faith is not blind denial. It is recognizing the limits of our perspective. Just as a child cannot comprehend the choices of a parent, we may not grasp the totality of divine reasoning. This does not diminish the reality of God. It only challenges us to trust and act rightly within the scope we can perceive. And history shows that even in the darkest suffering, from slavery to war, faith has inspired people to endure, to resist, and to build hope where none seemed possible.
The debate reaches its climax. Some praise the atheist's clarity and insistence on logical consistency. Others admire the believer's ability to frame suffering within a larger, meaningful context. The judges deliberate. Their decision will settle not just the round, but the entire contest. The virtual arena falls silent. 3 rounds have tested reason, faith, and human understanding. The fate of the debate will be revealed. The judges' final calculations appear on the scoreboard. It is a narrow margin reflecting the extraordinary strength of both sides, and the winner is the atheist. For now, the debate does not end here. This is just the beginning of the conversation. New questions will arise, new perspectives will challenge old ones, and the dialogue between belief and skepticism will continue. Subscribe to not miss a single debate. See you on the next one.